They fined me $2,500 for fishing, so I bought the lake and banned the entire HOA. It started with a $250 fine for fishing on a lake I'd been coming to since I was a kid. Same tackle box, same spot under the cypress tree. Only difference? Now there was an HOA president standing over me, sunglasses down her nose, clipboard in hand, barking about private lake use regulations. I tried explaining I wasn't trespassing. My family had a long-standing agreement with the original developer, but she wasn't having it. The fine was just the beginning. Next week, a letter. This time the number had jumped to $750, then $1,000 my fishing rod. Hadn't moved from the garage, but apparently I was still in violation. It felt like a joke, but the HOA wasn't laughing. They were escalating fast. What they didn't know was that I had a family trust and a contact at the county clerk's office, and more importantly, the lake. Well, the deed told a different story than their bylaws. So I played along. I smiled, nodded, even waved back when Karen drove by. But under the surface, I was preparing something deep, something poetic. Because if they were going to make this about territory and control, then I was going to show them what real ownership looks like. Let's just say, the next HOA meeting ended with no lake access. For anyone but me, the lake sat like a sapphire in the middle of our quiet subdivision, fringed by pine, cattails, and the occasional swan. It wasn't massive, but to us, it was sacred. Generations of kids had learned to skip stones and cast lines here. And for most of my life, it was open. No gates, no patrols, just neighbors being neighbors. That all changed when the new HOA board came in. Or as I call them, the subdivision syndicate. At the center of the madness, Beverly Monroe, HOA president, retired litigation secretary. She took her role with the intensity of a courtroom bailiff. To her, bylaws weren't just guidelines, they were commandments. She introduced a slew of new compliance measures. We're talking fence height restrictions, front porch decor limits, even the types of mailboxes allowed. But the real change came when she got her eyes on the lake. We need to preserve its integrity, she declared at the community meeting. Too many outsiders using our resources. Outsiders? I lived 3 houses down. The next month, they installed a chain-link fence and a keypad lock. HOA members only. A sign went up. No unauthorized lake access. Violators will be fined. Still, I didn't panic. I figured I could talk to someone, clear things up. After all, I knew something they didn't. My late grandfather had been one of the founding investors in the property, and when the original developer went bankrupt, a chunk of the lake, technically the whole south half, was quietly deeded into a private trust. That trust was still active, still ours, but I didn't want to play the legal card yet. I wanted to handle it neighbor to neighbor, so I walked over to the HOA office, records folder in hand. "Hi, I think there's been a mistake," I said, laying the documents on the table. Beverly didn't even look at them. The rules are the rules. If you're not a dues-paying HOA member, you can't fish. But I live here. Always have. She smirked. Then maybe it's time you started paying your fair share. I walked out of that office stunned. 3 days later, the first fine came in. $250. I hadn't even fished that day. But apparently, someone saw me near the water. A week later, $750. They claimed I tampered with the lock. The next notice accused me of creating a nuisance by loitering. Neighbors started whispering. Some looked away when I passed them on the sidewalk. And Beverly? She waved at me like nothing was happening. That's when I realized this wasn't just about the lake. This was about power, and they had just poked a very patient bear. Because what the HOA didn't understand yet was that this was my family's lake. And it was time to remind them. The fines started rolling in like clockwork. Every Monday morning, without fail, I'd get a certified letter with the HOA's logo on it and a brand new accusation. Unauthorized use of community resources, hostile behavior toward HOA enforcement, refusal to comply with posted signage. At first I thought they were bluffing. Then I checked my mailbox and saw the envelope was stamped with legal letterhead. They'd hired an attorney. Beverly had gone full courtroom. They even sent out a neighborhood-wide email, warning residents not to engage with the lake trespasser, attaching a blurry photo of me, standing by the water's edge. The subject line? Community safety alert. That's when it got personal. My mailbox was knocked over one night. My truck got a nail in the tire. 3 times in 2 weeks, and someone even sprayed HOA rules on my recycling bin. I knew who was behind it, or at least who was encouraging it. Beverly didn't need to get her hands dirty. She had her loyal band of clipboard warriors to do that for her. HOA cronies who lived for power trips and petty drama. Then came the real kicker. They installed motion sensor cameras pointed at the lake and at my property. I caught 2 HOA board members sneaking onto my side yard, inspecting property lines. I reported them to the sheriff. The deputy chuckled and said, "You know, you might have grounds for harassment." Harassment? Sure, but I wasn't looking for sympathy. I was looking for silence, and the only way to get that was to take away their favorite toy. I started digging deep. Property records, tax logs, water rights, historical surveys. And there it was, buried in a 1986 transfer deed. My grandfather's trust did still own the lake bed, or more specifically, 60% of it, including the entire south and west banks. Even better, the HOA had no registered easement, which meant every single fine they'd sent me was invalid. But I wasn't going to tell them that. Not yet. Instead, I let them keep digging their own grave. They sent one last letter. This time, the fine was $2,500, citing continued willful disregard of HOA regulations. And that's when I smiled, because I had just finished filing the paperwork to transfer full ownership of the lake to my name, not the trust. Me. Ownership paperwork in hand. I walked into the county office and requested a certified land use declaration. The clerk glanced at the deed, then at me. "You're now sole proprietor of 60% of Lake Washburn, sir. The HOA has no registered access rights." I smiled. Perfect. Next stop, a sign company. I paid extra for overnight delivery. 20 aluminum signs. Navy blue, white letters, private property, and no trespassing. By order of landowner. I installed them at every access point along the south and west side. Karen watched from her porch. Her mouth moved, but no words came. By sunset, I had padlocks on the docks, fencing along the tree line, and motion sensors of my own. Then I filed a cease and desist with the HOA's attorney, cited the original deed, the new transfer, the lack of access easements, included photographs, GPS data, and a notarized affidavit. The cherry on top? I had a county inspector review the HOA's own gate installations. Turns out they had encroached 6 feet onto my land. They were now in violation. The same HOA that fined me for standing too close to a lake I owned. I sent a formal letter to Beverly. Any further trespass or obstruction of my private shoreline will result in civil litigation and damages. She responded with a one-liner, "You'll regret this." Oh, but I didn't. Because the next HOA meeting, I showed up with my deed in hand, copies for all the board members, and a local reporter who'd caught wind of the story. That night, I posted a public notice on the community bulletin board. Effective immediately, lake access is revoked for non-owner use. People lost it. Board members stammered. Residents protested. But the law was on my side. And now, so was the lake. The fallout was instant. Emails exploded across the neighborhood chat like fireworks. Some furious, some stunned, others just confused. Parents who brought their kids to fish every Sunday, locked out. The yoga group that met at sunrise on the dock, gone. HOA paddleboard lessons, canceled indefinitely. They had built a kingdom on that lake, and I had just pulled the plug. The HOA tried to fight back, but I had already filed a formal land use revocation notice with the city. Their entire lakefront operations were now legally suspended. Their insurance didn't cover private land access. Their bylaws didn't apply to property they didn't own. I hired a private security company to install cameras and monitor the shoreline. Quietly, professionally, no drama, just presence. And when 2 board members tried launching kayaks from a side path that skirted my shoreline, I had video, time-stamped, geotagged, sent straight to my attorney. They received a new cease and desist, this time with a $5,000 per violation clause attached. Beverly, now cornered, called an emergency HOA meeting to reconsider lake policy. I showed up again, calm, deed in hand. I passed around copies and waited. Then I stood. "You wanted rules," I said. "Now you'll follow mine." Silence. I turned and walked out. The next morning, Beverly resigned. 2 other board members followed. New elections were held. The new president? He knocked on my door, hat in hand, and asked, What can we do to make this right? I gave him one answer. Respect boundaries. And just like that, the war ended. The lake was calm again. But this time it belonged to someone who actually gave a damn. Me. So, what did I learn from all this? That power doesn't come from fines, or fences, or how many meetings you chair. Real power comes from knowledge, from patience, and from the ability to keep calm while someone underestimates you. The HOA tried to turn the lake into a battleground, but they forgot the most important detail. The land beneath the water matters, more than the sign on the gate. And in this case, that land belonged to me. To everyone out there dealing with pettiness, red tape, or just someone who thinks a clipboard makes them king, don't lose your cool. Do your homework. Let them write their tickets, swing their threats, and post their blurry photos. Because when you finally strike back with facts and the law on your side, it doesn't just hit hard, it hits permanent. If you've ever dealt with a nightmare HOA, or someone trying to control what's not theirs, drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Or just type justice served if you made it this far. And hey, if you're wondering, yes, I still fish at the lake. Same cypress tree, same tackle box. Only difference now? I own the view. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because next time they try to pull something like this, I'll be ready.